Welcome to the Today is a Good Day podcast, a podcast to bring you a new point of support as you navigate your NICU journey. Today is a Good Day is here to be a part of your conversations, whether your baby was born prematurely, has special needs, or if your family is grieving a loss. The voices you will hear on the Today is a Good Day podcast are personal stories from people who have been there. Please don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast listening app. On today's episode, we'll discuss love and loss in the NICU. Not every NICU journey ends with taking a baby home. There are also many times when multiples are born and not all graduate from the NICU. So how do you walk the path of losing one child while trying to support the child fighting every single day? We're glad to have you with us today as we speak with my friend, Porsche Pinder, fellow NICU mom and host of Sisters with Porsche P on CMP Radio. Porsche is going to share her personal journey of welcoming Amara and Jace, saying goodbye to Amara, and staying strong for Jace. And every time I see you, my friend, I go back to that day 5 years ago when you and I met in the lobby outside of the Crozier NICU. And I'm so glad you came into my life that day. And I'm really happy to have you here today with us. But tell us a little bit about your pregnancy journey and your story.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to come and speak with you guys. You know, it's always love. Yes, and I was also blessed, in 2015 to meet you and your husband and your family. And, it's been love ever since.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are truly genuine and passionate and humble. And, what you're doing is a blessing. And I'm glad that, you're using your gifts that God gave you to bless other people and to bring light to the preemie community, infant loss community, because it is a taboo thing if you don't go through it. With me in 2015, I was 25, about to be 26, found out me and Jace's father, we found out, we're pregnant, we're having twins, like 2 for 1 special.
Right.
We were the last out of our friends to even have kids, and they're like, y'all going from 1 to 2. But twins do run in my family, so, but ours was the only opposite sex. It's normally same sex. So I was like, oh, good, I'm done. Boy, girl, that's it. I found out they were a boy and girl 2 weeks before I had them. So I was having pains in my stomach, and I didn't know what it was because this is my first pregnancy. I wasn't due until January 16th. So I'm not thinking I'm having contractions. I'm just thinking I'm having stomach pains. So it happened Tuesday night. So I would lift up, turn over, and they would go away. So I went back to sleep. It kept happening. And then Wednesday morning, the pain just wouldn't go away. And I'm like, oh my goodness, my stomach is hurting so bad. So I told their dad, I was like, listen, we gotta go to the hospital. Because it was to the point I couldn't really put my shoes on. I couldn't bend. So I'm just walking hunched over. And I kept having to go to the bathroom. So we went to the ER. They put me in a wheelchair, and they told him to just wheel me up to labor and delivery. So we went to labor and delivery. They put the belly band on me, and I just kept having to go to the bathroom. And it was well, they didn't tell me I was having contractions or anything. And they just was well, we don't want you to have the kids on the toilet, so you can use the bedpan. And I was like, I'm not having no kids. It's only September. She's tripping. Then my doctor came in there, and it was just just a lot going on. They were saying, we're going to have to prep you for a C-section and all this. And I'm just what do you mean? So it was a lot, the process in that little time, because it just went from 0 to 100. They was we're going to give you steroids for their lungs because it's so early. So as soon as he gave me the steroid, my water broke. I just felt and they were her water broke. When they first checked me, I was 3 centimeters. Then when they checked me, I was 5. And it was just a lot going on. They was prepping for a C-section. It was giving me another IV. It was so many people in there. And I'm just I just want the pain to go away. So my doctor told me if I need to push, I can push. So I like pushed a little bit and I was like, no way, like I'm not supposed to be like having kids right now. But the pain, like it was just like, I got to get this pain out. I pushed and Jace came out and they picked him up. And Amara, she was like by my ribs. So because she was so far up, they couldn't turn her. And now I had to get a C-section. So I'm on the table and I just told my doctor, like, it was nothing but God because my doctor was on call. Now, I didn't see any doctors in the group yet because I was still only 23 weeks. So I was like, just please, like, make sure they're safe. And he was like, I got you. And, like, he was like, hold on to me. Like, I was holding on to my doctor, like, while they were giving me my epidural. And the epidural didn't kick in fast enough, so they put me to sleep. I woke up. I'm like, I got kids. Like, so they kind of was like, okay, it's going to be like a roller coaster ride for the NICU. And I'm just like, okay. But you think like, my kids are going to be fine. We'll be home in no time. And it was like complete opposite. When they say emotional roller coaster, it was really an emotional roller coaster. And by me being like young, but good thing I had good family support because it definitely takes a village to go through all the emotions you go through. And my concerns were, how am I going to connect with my kids because I can't touch them. They're in incubators, they're under lights, like they have IVs all in them, like their skin is like transparent. It's like they're growing on the outside when they're really supposed to be growing on the inside. So that was an experience in itself too, because I had to realize that everybody's normal is different.
Right.
So my normal is having babies that are young and dealing with, the monitors and stuff going off. Like I'll be in there and like my cousins would come and visit. They're like, how do you stand there? I was like, oh, it's just nothing. Like because I'm used to it. And they're like, well, how can you hold him? He's so little. I'm used to it.
Did you know about the NICU though? I mean, I know Paul and I looking at it, we weren't familiar with the NICU. We didn't have anyone who knew about the NICU.
My cousin actually had her daughter a month before. And that's when like I heard about like, oh, she was in the NICU, but I didn't know anything about it until like I had to experience it. And I feel like OBGYNs, when they tell you about pregnancy, they also need to give you a pamphlet about being like preemies in the NICU, because when you think of pregnancy, you think of a healthy baby, 10 fingers, 10 toes.
We talk about that all the time.
That's what you think of, but
right.
But it's also a whole nother aspect as well. So that's why when they told me about the NICU, I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Like they'll be home soon. And it definitely wasn't that. And then with Amara going through that whole transition of, she was always the stronger one. She she didn't have many issues. Jace, they told me head on, they wasn't sure if he was going to make it because his lungs was so bad. I still have his x-ray. They gave me the x-ray and it was like all these little holes like in his lungs, and they're like, these are air pockets. If his lungs collapse, there's nothing we can do. But at Crozier, the one doctor, she made me feel so comfortable because she was generally concerned. She was like, even when I go home, I worry about him. He's always in my thoughts. So I would just pray and I was like, Lord, please protect my babies. Like protect them. Like let them come home. And then one night they called me in October and they told me like, Amara, she's got an infection and they wasn't able to get like vitals on her. They couldn't get like a heart rate on her like a blood pressure on her for like hours. And they was like, you need to come to the NICU. So I came there, and at this point, Jace had 3 infections and his body was like responding to the medication. So I'm thinking, she'll be fine. Like she's always the strong one, everything will work out. And they were just saying like, we're really concerned. And I called my mom, and then like my mom called like my aunts. Like it was just so many people in there. They like put us in another room, and they was just saying like, we're giving her all the medications we can give her. If it doesn't work, then there's nothing more than we can do. So when they told me that, I was just like, it took like the wind out of me. It was just like, what? Like, what do you mean? I couldn't like kind of grasp around it. So I just told everybody, I was like, I need a minute. And I went, and like that pain, I told somebody, I said, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, Cause it's just something in me. Like, I don't even, like, I cried from like my soul, like the bottom of my pit. Like, and I just cried, let out a cry, and I got it out. I wiped my eyes, I got myself together, and I went back in there. And I was praying and I was singing gospels to her, and I knew God was there because one of the actual physicians was like, I see you guys are praying. Can I pray with you? Mm-hmm. And like, she actually like prayed with us. My uncle came and he baptized her. And it was just like, it was God like protecting me from everything. And I tell anybody, I don't care what you believe in, but when you go through this experience, you have to believe in something because you could lose your mind because it's a lot that you're going through and you can't really explain it to your family because they feel some type of way, but they don't really understand like everything that you're going through.
What helped you to get through each day? I mean, was it that faith? Was it that what was the biggest thing that really helped you to get through each day in the NICU? And also, and we share a similar story, my friends, but it's really hard to when you get to the point of saying goodbye and then having to turn around and find that strength. And I love how you describe it, of that pain coming kind of out of your soul, that you had to get it out, pull yourself back together, and go back because you had to stay strong.
I looked at it as, who am I to give up when I still got another child fighting for his life? Mm-hmm. Like, you can't give up because you still have a child in there, Porsche. Like, you can't give up. You have to fight just like your child is fighting. You lost one. And I told her, I said, okay, now you take care of your brother. So I don't, like, for some reason I was at peace with the situation because I felt like she's not suffering anymore. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have to be poked or prodded. She's with her great grandmothers and stuff. Like, I felt like at peace. Like, I was really at peace with it. And then Crozier made it so peaceful too because they was like, whenever you're ready, let us know. We're not going to rush you. And so everything was so like calming and peaceful. And I prayed and I asked for like God to give me peace and the strength. Mm-hmm. So I just had to look at it as like, okay, my child is fighting to even breathe. Like, you're breathing. So get up and go. And I just was, every day I just went back and I just kept going.
As you look back on your journey and what Jace has been through and the NICU in particular, as we're talking to other families who are currently navigating this NICU, and I have to say, Porsche is one of our original listening session hosts. She started with us. Crozier was the second hospital we started partnering with, and Porsche came in to meet with other families. But what's that piece of advice that you give to other families? How do you help them to face each day and keep taking it one day at a time?
I always tell them, sometimes it looks like you can't see like the light of day. And I always tell them, after every storm, it's always a rainbow. Mm-hmm. So you got to keep pushing, like push no matter what. And I tell them, I said, I was like, after Amara passed, I was like in a kind of a bad place because then they told me like bad news about Jason. I was like, God, I can't take no more bad news. Like, I just can't. I was ready to give up. And then that's when they told me, Porsche, we have a couple out here. They went through the exact same thing you went through, and I think you should meet them. And I was like, okay. And that that was like confirmation from God to be like, this is evidence. Like, it's a family that went through the exact same thing you went through. Their daughter is doing better. They have another child. They was able to do a full-term pregnancy. Like, this is evidence. Like, it's going to be okay. And I was just like, you know what? And I kind of, at first I was like, I didn't post a lot of pictures of Jace and Amara because I didn't want to see a lot of people. I didn't want a lot of people to see them like that. And that's one thing I kind of regretted. I wish I would have took more pictures.
That's hard, though, especially with our babies being born so prematurely.
It is.
It's very personal to share those photos and figuring out how you want to do that and what avenue to take to share. Right. And also, so many family and friends are reaching out via text or email or calling. And that can be overwhelming of going, I can't get back to everybody, right? And trying to figure out what platform you set up where nowadays it's a Facebook group, or when we were in the NICU, it was Caring Bridge, and we set up a site where we could share journal entries with family and friends asking because it got so overwhelming trying to respond to everybody.
It was. But I am grateful because Crozier, they had this volunteer photographer, and he came and he took pictures of her. And they were in black and white, and like they dressed her up. So I do have that, which I'm thankful for, because some people don't even have that.
Right.
And like a lot of like people I talked to, they was like, I wish like we would have did more and stuff like that. But I'm like, you'll always have the memories. Not, I tell them, just like the one day, one of my friends from church said, not too many people can say they held an angel. Like your hands held an angel. And they was like, that's your personal angel. And I looked at it like, what, you're right. And I also looked at it like God gives his toughest battles to people that he know can endure. So, he picks special people to have preemies, because everybody can't handle it, because it is a lot.
It's a lot.
And a lot of people don't think, and I tell them, the easy part is kind of like them being at, in the hospital. The journey is when they come home, because you have a lot of follow-up appointments, like therapists, specialists. And then it's like developmental wise too. Right. So they think, okay, they're home now, they're good. No, it still continues. Like for me, it's still continuing because Jace is autistic. I'm not sure if he's going to talk. So that's another journey that I had to come and be okay with, because that was a hard pill for me to swallow. How did you
figure out that you recognized that he needed some extra assistance, or that he needed to go be evaluated? And we hear from families who don't know how to even start that process. So how did you start that process with Jace?
Well, I am kind of lucky because I did work in the special needs field, and my mom's been there for like since I was a baby. So I would notice that he wasn't talking, and I'm like, he's still not like kind of saying anything. And he would kind of stem a little bit, like with his hands, like he'll like put his hands up, and like the way he was clapping. And I'm like, I don't know, something just like as a parent, something doesn't feel right. So I reached out to, because he does get early intervention. So I reached out to them, and I asked them, can he get a developmental test? So he had his developmental test in December. And then that's when, the results came back, and he told me, he has autism. So I was just like, at first I was very upset. Like I cried a lot, because I'm like, Lord, my child, he fought all his life. I just wanted something like easy for him. Because, some people look at kids with autism differently. And I didn't want them to judge him. Sorry.
Oh.
So that was hard. But I said, all right, Portia, you got this. You can do it.
You do.
So, thank you. So I reached out to, his case manager was like, now he can go to Elwyn. So he goes to Elwyn, and I saw a drastic change. They are very good there. They love him. He gets spoiled. But I saw like he was progressing more. He was doing, more things, eating better, things like that. And so I was like, okay. I had to then I went to therapy, because I was still having a hard time. It was still hard for me to talk about it. I didn't want to be around my family. My cousins was like, you don't come hang out with us, because I had all these emotions, and I knew they wouldn't understand it. So I just kind of secluded myself. And then I was like, I didn't want them to judge him. So I went to therapy, and that was the best thing I could have did, because I never really dealt with Mars passing. So I had to deal with it, because when she passed, my focus was on Jace.
You go right back,
and
right?
It always been there, and I never really dealt with those emotions. So, and then she helped me to kind of cope with, it's okay to feel everything you're feeling. It's okay to be upset about Jace being autistic, but that doesn't make you a bad mom. keep fighting. So I tell everybody, you know, if you need to get therapy, go ahead. That don't mean you're crazy, nothing. Like, that doesn't mean you're weak, you know. You just need some extra help. So that helped me. And then I just been like, because I kind of had to navigate autism by myself, because it was like, okay, he has autism, he's going to Elwyn. That was that. So I'm like looking up stuff because, like, I went to his neurologist, and I was just like, I just feel like I don't know what to do next. It was just like, he has autism, he's going to a developmental school, and that was it. But it wasn't like, okay, as a parent, this is what you need help with, or this is, you know, things that can help you.
Now, when you talk about the therapy and the anxiety and the stress, we talk about it so much in the NICU. And I know for me personally, it really hit me a couple years after. And I think it's exactly what you're talking about, Portia, where you say goodbye. We had, and I don't know about you, we had some regrets from when Mary passed away of saying goodbye to her, that we didn't do kangaroo care with her. And we had some areas that lived with us for a really, really long time that we didn't do with her when we said goodbye because we didn't know any better.
Right.
But when you say goodbye to one twin who you don't expect, and just like Amara, Mary was stronger than Claire.
Right.
But then you turn around and you are right back there by the bedside, being strong, taking it one day at a time, doing the best that you can. And that stress and anxiety, it'll catch up to you. Yeah,
it will.
It will.
It will. Yeah, because it was kind of, well, I am thankful because I was able to hold her. Like, we did skin to skin. I held her, then Maurice held her on the ventilator, and then I held her until we took her off the ventilator. So I was thankful that I was able to do that. But it was kind of difficult because I think like that was like my crutch. Jace was my crutch. So it was like, okay, she passed. Now I gotta, you know, focus on Jace. And he was my focus for so long. That's why I stopped, you know, doing my show and everything, because he was my focus. So, you know, you can only hide for so long and mask it for so long, where, you know, you have your days where you feel good, and then like it's just something there and you're like, well, what is going on? Like, I'm happy and then I'm crying like another minute, or I just don't feel like doing anything. And that's when I was talking to my aunt. She's a therapist, and she was like, maybe you need to go to therapy. And I was like, I don't need to go to therapy. Like, I'm fine. But it was just like it's like a huge weight on your shoulders. And I was like, I just feel weighted down. So I went, and my first session, I just felt so free. Like, I felt so much better. I had so much more energy, because all of the emotions that I was feeling, that I was trying to mask, trying to hide, because I just felt like nobody understood what I was going through. So I kind of masked my emotions so much that when I went to my therapist and I just let it all out, I was like, I just felt like I just lost like 10 pounds, and it was 10 pounds of baggage.
And when you look back, what were some of the triggers for you? I mean, what stood out for you as you knew that something was going to happen?
When I see like people that are pregnant and, you know, their belly's all big, and, you know, I didn't really get to experience that. I didn't get to have like a photo shoot. So those were kind of like hard triggers for me that I had to fight through. I was okay, but I still had you just get like a ting, like a sting when you see like, oh, somebody say, oh, I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh, okay. And like for me at my job, I do maternity outreach. So I had to kind of like deal with talking to people who had twins. And I was just like, oh my goodness, why they keep giving me these people? Like, I don't want to talk to them. And it was kind of like salt on the old wound sometimes. But, you know, I fought through it. And, you know, so every now and then I'll get somebody who has a preemie. The one girl, she was like so worried. And I shared my whole story with her. And you could hear the smile on her face, because when I first talked to her, you could tell she was down. And she even like got her mom like, Mom, she had a preemie, da-da-da. Like, I talked to her and she was like, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate it. And I was like, no problem. And my coworker, she was like, I looked over, she's crying like, oh my goodness, I just want to give you a hug. Like, that was so beautiful. You talked to her. I said, I tell everybody, you have to share your story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind sharing my story about Jace and Amara, because by me talking about her, she's still alive, like she's still present. So I always tell people, share your testimony, because you don't know who you're going to bless. You don't know like who's might be feeling some type of way. Because when I finally had enough courage to like go live and I recorded it, I told them everything I went through with Amara, because I still had people like, oh, they were kind of trying to work like, well, what happened? So I went live, I shared my story, and I had so many people message me like, oh, I had miscarriages, I'm trying to get pregnant, but you gave me hope, you gave me strength. And I just felt like, that was my calling to share and be transparent, because by you being transparent, you're healing yourself, but you also are healing someone else.
Well, and it feels so good to talk about our babies who have passed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think people always have a hard time that they don't know whether they can ask or bring up Amara's name or Mary's name, or, talk about the babies who have passed to bereaved parents. And what I think people don't realize is how much it means to us when someone does bring up your child's name who passed away, right?
That's true. That is so true.
And when we can share our stories and talk about them and talk about our miracles and how far they've come. I mean, look at Jace. He's such a love.
Yes, he's something else.
Yes.
He's something else. Those dimples in the glasses
he
everybody. They don't work for me anymore. Not for Mom.
With family and friends and with the journeys that we've been through, what advice would you give to family and friends who are trying to help a family member, a daughter, a son, a niece, somebody going through the NICU and they don't know what to do? I mean, what advice would you give to them?
I would definitely say just to be patient and just to be there. Sometimes just sitting in silence, and if they're crying, just sit in silence and just let them have their moment, because it doesn't matter if your child lived for an hour, 2 minutes, a couple of days, even months. That's still a huge impact on that person, because they formed a bond with their child. So if they have their days where they want to just break down, just be there and say, whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here for you. Just be present and be comforting and allow them to have their emotions. A lot of people think that, oh, well, they should be over it by now. That's something traumatic. That's trauma. You can never be over trauma. You have your days where they're good, and you might have your days when they're bad, but allow them to have their days. You can't put a timestamp on when somebody's grieving, because that's a huge impact in their life.
So tell us about Jace today. What's he up to? What's his favorite thing to do?
Jace is nonverbal, but he definitely gets his point across. He loves his Amazon Kids tablet, and I love it too, especially when I'm at work. He loves music. He really loves gospel music. He loves the drums. He's just a happy baby, which I'm like thankful for.
Well, he is a miracle for sure.
Yes.
And how do you continue to honor Amara's life?
For their birthday, we always do pink balloon releases. So at the end of like their party, like we'll all come together, we'll talk, we'll release the balloons, and every now and then like I'll look in like her box that I have of like the pictures of her, and then one day like I'll be able to get enough courage, enough strength to get, because we have her ashes, to get like necklaces, and put her in there, but I do, like, I'll reminisce. Like, I have a blown up picture of her from my baby shower, because I got people to sign around it so they can see what she looked like. So that's hanging in Jace's room. There are pictures together, pictures of Maurice holding her, like of me holding her, and I'll tell Jace, like, that's your sister, you see her? Yeah, that's how I honor her.
That's great. Well, Portia, I am so grateful, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, that you came into my life that day.
Yes.
And Paul and I feel very blessed to know you and your mom, for sure. But I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story today. You are an inspiration for many, as is Jace. Such a little love. Can't wait to see him again.
Yes.
But grateful for your friendship and thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.